Dan Ives just shared what he thinks is going to be a huge catalyst for Tesla stock that Wall Street is completely missing in an interview with Farzad. Currently, Dan is actually in the top 500 of all of Wall Street analysts, beating the S&P 500 by 4.5% since 2009. And it actually gets quite a bit more impressive if we only compare the last 12 months. Then his rating jumps to 144 out of all of the Wall Street analysts.
How do you think about that side of the business for Tesla?
No, I think that the street assigns basically no value to that business today. So that's one as you look out, and that's huge potential as they scale it. I think them breaking out margins further on that business would actually be a positive. Because it goes back to like with Amazon. You never got credit with AWS. So you broke it out and you broke out the margins. And that was a big part of the massive re-rating in Amazon. For Apple, it was services. So a lot of times, like, you have to be a little more granular when you break out some of these businesses, provide some margin detail. And that's something that I think is important to the next leg of that stool. When you talk about the next step of the Tesla story, it's about that. It's about the energy piece.
That was Dan talking about the Megapack business and comparing it to Amazon's AWS business. And this may read exactly eventually like the energy storage business may for Tesla. AWS, Amazon's cloud computing platform used by companies as big as Netflix and Spotify, continues to grow. The division more recently added Salesforce as a primary customer, Amazon says, and it posted profit of $718 million, and pay attention to this, on $2.9 billion in sales. That's a 135% jump in profit and 58% jump in sales compared with the year ago quarter. The energy storage business, I think, eventually is likely to look very similar to this. And even more importantly, for the second straight quarter, AWS earns Amazon more profit than its entire North American retail division. Keep in mind, that was from 2016. So it took a long time for that business to come to life. Look what Amazon stock did. But of course, if you look a few years before 2016, you can sort of see the same story too. Doubling and then tripling. Back in 2019, what did Elon say? Elon predicts Tesla Energy could be bigger than its EV business. In 2022, Elon says pedal to the metal. Musk says battery storage will outstrip electric vehicle growth. We actually see the energy storage business growing more like 150 to 200% a year, faster than cars. Faster by a lot, Musk told an online briefing after the release of the company's third quarter results.
I mean, if I go back years ago, there was a time Apple, like services business, we're going to give it no valuation, maybe 50 billion. Now I'd say that's worth $1 trillion, 1.2 trillion. It's a big part of what happens in these transformational stories. Microsoft going to give no credit to the cloud business. Part of why that stock was a 10-bagger because of the cloud business. So I think that's what happens in these transformational stories. But as we talk about, the haters hated it at 5 billion, 10 billion, $1 trillion, 600 billion. If they were, draft experts, they would have been negative on Brady coming out of the 2000 draft, 6th round.
Dan Ives is definitely not talking about anyone that we would have in mind, right? I'm not sure exactly why there's a clown on my computer screen here. Cherry picker for hire. I don't know what this has to do with anything. There's something wrong with my computer, I think. This is not what I'm looking for. Here we go. Gordon Johnson is who I was looking for. I mean, he said sell Tesla stock at $18, at $22, at $51, at $100, at $137. Sell Tesla stock. Always. And of course, eventually, even a broken clock will be right for a brief moment, although I don't think these are going to age well long term.
As we went through it, obviously I saw a lot from retail or on Twitter, a lot of criticism, like, why criticize Musk? Like, what? He's the richest person in the world. He's a modern day Albert Einstein, Thomas Edison, which I agree. Like, why criticize him? My view is just institutional investors were massively frustrated with what was going on. And even though maybe listeners, they're like, well, who cares day to day? But institutional investors are super important to the story. And that was something to be communicated, I think, as that was going on. And that, like I said, I think that was a huge part of the overhang, a significant part of the sell-off that we saw take place in the latter part of 2022.
If you want to know what institutional investors are thinking about Tesla stock, I think Dan Ives is a pretty good person to go to. If I go to NASDAQ.com, it says that current institutional ownership, when we look at Tesla stock, is at almost 50%. Now, this number is actually probably a little bit smaller because we had a few weird filings from some institutions. For example, this company Natixis, which supposedly mostly invests in bonds on behalf of European insurers, bought a humongous 171 million shares of Tesla stock, and that would have made them supposedly $17 billion in gains. And they would have owned $40 billion of Tesla stock, which is roughly the number that Elon sold in the last 15 months or so. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but seems like maybe someone just added an extra zero when they were making the filing with the SEC. While this number may actually be a little bit smaller, it's still going to be pretty high. So institutions buying Tesla stock, that is going to move the stock higher.
7 of every 10 institutional investors wasn't on the radar.
Wow.
Stock got so cheap. Risk, like when you start to get to levels, like let's just go back, late December, you knew it was going to be a soft Q4 delivery number. Everyone thought, okay, why should this should start to trade toward a traditional automotive company, sub 100. Like at that point, and we talked about, the risk reward was probably, that was like one of the more unique times, maybe going back to sometimes in 2018, 2019, that we've seen.
Yeah, I remember when we were at about $100 almost daily, Gary Black was saying that Tesla stock is as cheap as it was back in 2020, March, when everyone was sick. And Tesla stock just doubled, and then it just kept going up and up and up and up and up and up. It has come down a little bit since then, but it's still up 600% since then. And in terms of catalysts, what is interesting, Gary Black thinks it is looking similar to 2019, end of 2019. And you look at the price chart, there was basically no better time almost to buy Tesla stock when at the end of 2019. And yeah, that's what Gary Black thinks. He's bullish right now, short term, relatively, because of Cybertruck and Megapacks, the energy storage business. I liked that video. I'll put a link down to it in the pinned comment below.
Were you surprised by that move that they made? That crazy price cut they did earlier this year?
I think it was a genius poker move that they needed to make, because I think they recognized there was a price point if they cut to, and they were able to, and they could still do that with auto gross margins, north of 20. They could do that, and they knew demand, there was a level that would significantly accelerate demand. And that's what they needed to do. It's not just what's happening in China, but in the U.S., because this is, I think it's always dangerous when you're the leader in a market by miles. I think Intel is a good example of that. You could easily just price yourself out of things, get comfortable, feel like competition's not going to ultimately come and get you. And then look what happens, right? It goes back to like Ford 1919. What happened
Mm.
by 1927? So I think these are all historical, what I'd say, like, stories that I think Tesla, Musk, the board are very well aware of.
And I think as long as we have Elon Musk within Tesla, I don't think we really need to worry about Tesla becoming stale, not innovating anymore, not trying new things. This is what I'm sort of afraid of. If we have someone else, interfering with Tesla and then we sort of force Elon out, Tesla might become stale. I don't want that. Just like I wouldn't want this Tesla stock buying opportunity to go away soon, which by the way is explained right here by Elon Musk. And my name is Matt Postis. Like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.